Welcome back to part 4 of this Scriptcase demonstration. As we now continue, we will be creating a new application and starting with the form application. So we have previously created our summary application and completed that. So instead of creating a new application this time around, we are going to go ahead and select the batch applications, and we are going to create two forms, being the customer as well as the orders. So here I will go ahead and select next, and here we will have then a form, a grid, another form, and also a grid. The difference by using the express creation is that the form and grid will be automatically linked, not requiring us to make any further actions to link the two applications together. This will save quite some time on generation and creating multiple applications which require this linkage. So we do have the option here on forms to select the type of form we want to generate, if it's a single row, multiple rows, editable grid, or the grid view. We can edit the form name if we here choose. And we can also provide a description for the form, which will be displayed within our home page. Once we are ready, we can select to generate the source or select to edit. I'll just go ahead and select the finish button. The applications will then be generated, and we can then go ahead and open our form customers. So let's go ahead and run this first of all and see what it looks like by default. So our default customer form has our header, just as we had within our grid, which we can then include our logo and so forth, as we did previously. We also have the quick search and default CRUD buttons, which are required for the add, save, and delete of our form data. So the save, of course, is the replacement for update. We also have an exit button. So within the form, we have all of our fields, and as we see, just as the grid, the Scriptcase application actually identifies the field types and provides the correct field values and so forth, which we then only have to go ahead and modify within the form. So let's go back to our form. So within the form application, we have on the initial page, similar to the grid, the initial options of this application. So here we can select first of all the orientation of our form, if it is a single record as we have now, multiple records. I'll go ahead and run that, and we can see the multiple records, and now we have multiple records. We also then have the option for the editable grid view, and the editable grid view is slightly different. Here we have some delete and save buttons on the left hand side, and then we also have the grid view. And as we see again, the grid view is slightly different from the previous selections. Okay, back to our form. On the left hand side, we see again that we have a very similar menu to what we have with the grid applications, as well as all applications within Scriptcase, as we will see as we continue. So here again, we can configure our layout of our application. We can select here the fields, move the fields around, and provide them in the location where we want. Of course, we will want to create some blocks and so forth, which we will do, and we will also want to change some of the values of the selections which we have here. So for instance, we have here the city ID. Let's change the name to city, and we will also want to have a select menu there. And then here for card type, we can leave card type, card number. We just need to adjust the name slightly. Region ID, again here we will want to select option, contact title, the name, and then also the company, so we can just adjust those slightly. So now within the field values, we can adjust each of these fields. So here first of all we have the photo. So if I come here and save this, and then we view our photo options. So with photos, we have the option to store the image within a database or with a file name. We also have the same options for documents. So when documents or files are stored within the database, then we would want to use a blob field, for instance. When using a file name, we may want to store the file name as well as the path, and then we would want to actually provide those indications here. So if I select the image file name, I will now have the option to specify the subfolder where these would be then stored. For instance, I can either add the path or a value from a global value, and then that could be taken from our database or from an alternative variable which we have stored. So I'll go ahead and leave it as image database for now, as all of the images are actually stored in the database. And instead of actually going ahead and modifying the fields a little further, let's go ahead and straight away go to our blocks. And so here we can actually create new blocks within our application and organize our data a little further. So I'll create one block and I'll create another block. Any name we define is okay. Ideally, they shouldn't be identical, of course. So here again, you'll see that I'm applying block 1, block 2. So within the blocks, we have, first of all, the name of the block, which we then target within our application. For instance, within the events, we can define if X user, hide X block. In that case, we would define this block name. The label is what is displayed within the form application itself. So here I will define details. Here, let's add photo. And here we can add address, for instance. Now to the right of these, we have the option to display this title. So I will display this for the details, photo and address. And then we have the option to display the labels of our fields, as well as define the position of the labels, which can be beside, above or below. We can then define the amount of columns we want within this grid or within this block, the position of the fields, and what the next position is of the next block. So here, for instance, I can define that the next block would be beside. In this case, I would want to make sure that I have enough space here for both blocks so that they can actually comfortably sit next to each other. To the right of this, we then also have the option to define whether they start open or closed or no option at all. For instance, if I select here, start open, and I will select start closed, I have the labels saved. Let's save that for now. Now, before we can actually go ahead and view these blocks, we need to move our fields within these various areas. So now we have two options of doing that. Within the edit fields, we can drag and drop them as we had done a few moments ago. So if I take here, for instance, photo and signature and place them within the photo block, I will save that. The alternative option is within the field's positioning. So here I can rapidly select multiple elements and move them around within our form application and within a specific grid. So here I will select all of these customer details and place them within the defined grids. We save that, and then we can run our application. Now, as we see, within the grid, we already have a slightly different layout, and blocks are not applied. For blocks to be visible, we need to again change the form orientation to a single record. And now if we go ahead and run this again, we will now see the correct layout with the grid blocks within our form. And as we can see here, we have the option here, the address, which we defined as closed, which is automatically closed. And we have the option here to open and close these elements. And as you may remember, the first option we set a no, so this does not provide the block label or the option to open and close the relevant details. So you will notice that I have adjusted the blocks, the layout of each of them, and also added some extra ones. So first of all, I've moved the photo to the top. I've adjusted the width of the first three sections so that they are basically next to each other. Below that, I've added some tabs. And then below that, I've added an extra grid, an extra block for orders. So when I run the form application, we will now see the new layout. Okay, so we see here first of all that one thing I did was adjust the photo size. So to do that, we would access here the photo field. And within the photo field, we can adjust the image and height of the image so that it fits a little comfier in here. For the notes, I had also added a HTML editor. So here within the application, we come here to notes, and we could select a HTML editor as the data type, and then also load a specific HTML template. So within the form application, we have many options to actually format our fields as well as the values that we have here. So we can see here that some of the drop down for values are not complete, as well as some of the phone values and so forth here could be actually formatted correctly. So accessing our application again, we can come here to, first of all, the region ID, which we had as a drop down menu. We have then the option for the automatic lookup. So I will provide this for the region, and there I will select the region table. And very quickly, I will now have the regions available within the drop-down menu. So I will also select to use a title. So that way the first option is actually blank, or of course we can add a value in here, a title or even a value which would then be identified. So the next drop down menu was the state ID. So we will again apply a lookup. So coming down here we will apply a create select, and we want the state table, and then provide the state name, and again select the connection and also use the title. So I'll go ahead and save that. So the final option we're going to have a look at here is the phone number, for instance. Now with values such as numbers, we have various format options. For instance, we could set here a field mask. Within the phone field, for instance, we can apply a watermark. So here we can define the numbers that need to be applied here. We can then provide a watermark so that people understand how the numbers should be entered. We can then also provide that within the field mask, to ensuring that values are actually remaining the same for all users. So I'll play that here within the field mask, and then we run our form again, and we will now see that the phone number should be correctly formatted. Okay, so another option you have here is, for instance, with credit type, for instance, we have here the credit limit. Now if I view this field, being a currency value, we can apply here alternative options for this option. So here, for instance, we have regional settings and digit grouping, which we can apply. We can display the currency symbol of the user language. We also have the option to display a calculator if we so choose, which I will select to add. So if I now go ahead and run this again, we will now have the option to have a calculator with the credit limit here, which we can then open and use within our form application. So one final thing we want to add here is we are still missing our orders block here. So let's go ahead and add a master detail. And what we want to do is we want to add a specific grid into this form. So we have here at the moment the customer information. Now in some cases we would want to display the orders for this user also. So coming back here to the application, I will go back to my home page. And I would also open the grid orders, which we had previously created. Within the grid orders, I will modify the SQL, which then states at the moment from orders, so displaying all orders, and we want to apply here a where statement, and then we want to take here the customer ID, so we copy the customer ID equals, and we want the customer ID again. And then we can save our grid application. Now when I run this grid application now, we will be requested to insert a customer ID. So if I add one here, for instance, we should then receive the specific values of that user. Okay, so back to our form to make sure that we actually see values here. We want to now add this grid into our form application. So one final thing I'm going to do before that is I'm going to modify the grid to display at 100%. So I'm adjusting here the table width. I'll select % and provide 100. So now this should, okay, so now within our form, this should then fit quite nicely. I will then go ahead and add the new detail. And here we will add then a name, and we can also provide a label if we so choose so. We already have a block created, so I will deselect that and go create. Now once we've done so, we then have the option to select the application which we want to link to this application, essentially the detail form. So now here I will select the grid orders, which we have just modified. I will select next, and we will now be requested the customer ID, which we have just defined within the SQL, and I will select confirm. Once completed, we then can define further options if we so choose so. We can adjust the detail grid application to display the search or grid, change the view mode, as well as the number of lines, columns, the header, and so forth. So I'm just going to leave this as default. And now as we have our grid created and the block also available, we just need to adjust the location of our order grid. So I'm going to move it now into the block orders which we had created, and then go ahead and run our form application. Now within the form application, we can first of all see that we have our form that we have created, and at the bottom we now have the grid with all of the customer orders. Of course, we have defined that the order should be 100%, But for that, we do need to rerun the grid application. Let's generate the source, and then we can return to our form, and we can actually just refresh the page. And now our grid is 100% within here. Now we do have a slight issue here with the label. So again, within our block, let's close the generation, return to our form and enter the block. And now within the orders, we are going to remove the labels and set it as above. And then we can run this again. And now we will have the orders grid 100% of the bottom value here. Okay, so now that we have finished our form application and also provided a master detail within it, let's go ahead and create a new application. So before I do that, I will go ahead and generate all applications so that they have all been updated. I will use the generate and select the outdated applications and generate them. So once the generation is complete, I will close them. And we will now go ahead and create a new application. So this time we will be selecting a chart application. So again, I select the chart. As with the majority of applications, we need to select the table which we want to use. So here I will select the table, sales, leave the fields as they are. I will also leave the chart as it is. And the theme and edit fields I will also leave as they are. We can adjust them within the grid itself. Do also remember that we can always adjust the SQL Builder and use the SQL Builder to create custom SQL statements. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create. Now, once our chart application has been created, we can go ahead and on our initial page, select the chart fields which we want to use. So here, first of all, I will select the category as a dimension, and we will also select a sales date. And let's go sales date again a few times. So we have yearly, quarterly, and via month. We can adjust this within the selections if we choose so. So we have a quarterly, daily, a full day, year and week, and so forth. I will leave them as they are right now, but just adjust where they are placed. So we have month, quarter, and then year. Now for the metrics, I will place the quantity sold, and then we will go ahead and run our chart application. Now with the chart application running, we can see that we have a really nice clean view here. We also have the sales indicated via category that we have defined within here. We have here the dimensions, category, sales dates, and this is what we have here. So now within the chart, I do also have a click-through where I can actually drill down in the chart and view specific information that I want to see. Within the chart, we have various other options available also. We have at the top sorting options built in. We also have custom values which we can define. So here we can change the values which we have defined within the chart. So if I go back to the chart, I could specify further dimensions, and then within the chart we can actually adjust them, change them, display them, or not display them as we so choose. We can also select to use the drill down instead of grouping in series. And we also have metric values which we can define here also. Next to this, we have further options for the chart display itself. So at the moment we have a bar chart. We can specify to view a line chart. We can also specify to view an area chart or a pie chart if we so choose. Various chart types are available, and we can select the ones we want to view either by default, provide options to have them available or not available, and so forth. The chart types option allows us to preview the type of charts that we have available, and then from here we can select the type of chart which we want to view our data from. We also have here the summary of this data. So here within the summary we can have a clear view of all of the specific data we have gathered within this chart. To the right of that we have export features where we can export to PDF, Word, Excel, and so forth, as we can do within the majority of applications within Scriptcase. We then also have our exit button and the typical header at the top of our page. So within the chart application, I will go ahead and add our header as we've done within all of our applications. So here I will specify the image as our logo and change the date to title, and go ahead and save that. So within the chart application, we also have the option here for the theme, where we can change the theme applied to the chart layout. So here, for instance, we have multiple available already. We can select one of these and apply them as we please to our chart application. Below that we have further options. We have first of all the settings, which are specific to this grid application, which are specific to this chart application. For instance, here we can select whether it creates a new chart, if the chart is responsive, as well as provide a title. We then have tick boxes where we can remove charts from our selection, meaning they will not be available within the chart types or within the buttons available at the top of our chart. We have other options where we can specify the quantities, labels, and so forth. The export features are similar to all other applications where the PDF, Word documents, and so forth are exported. Below that, we have the dimension fields, which we can then also customize if need be. For instance, we can apply a lookup method to the category if required. We then also have the metric fields, which we can also adjust accordingly. So within the chart application, we are able to create full extensive charts displaying specific information which we want to view, and also provide drill down as well as links to grid applications and for us to be able to view specific information. Now, in the case of wanting to use a grid and chart at the same time, it would more than likely be a better idea to create your chart within the grid application so that they can both interlink and exchange data between them. The next application we're going to go ahead and create is the dashboard application. So again, I will select new application and I will select the dashboard application. Here we have no further options to select, as it is basically a blank application where we create a dashboard only. So here I will select create, and once created we can define the layout of our dashboard application. For instance, here we have the option to add a link widget or add an index widget. There is a difference between the two, so let's have a look. Add link widget allows us to specify a application within this section that we have defined here. So here, for instance, I can add the grid sales, and then I can specify for the grid cells the target of this application, where the data will be displayed when we perform drill downs, click buttons, and so forth. For instance, within this section, the grid cells calls the form cells application, and then we can define here if this form cells, when opened within the grid, is opened within the application default, if it creates a widget automatically, or whether it is displayed within widget 1. I will leave that as the application default. We also have toolbar options where we can then change and indicate the various options that are available within the application. So here, for instance, we can remove the export features from the grid application, which is displayed within this section. I will just go ahead and click save and leave it as it is. Now we have here our grid cells, our new widget which has been added, and as you can see, we can adjust it around within our form or within our dashboard as we so please. The widget 1 here, I will go ahead and delete this, and this time we will go ahead and add an index widget. So the index widget allows us to retrieve specific values from tables. For instance, here I can specify a title, provide an icon, the alignment, and so forth, and then we can define the connection which we are going to use and provide the table which we want to view. So here, for instance, I can select sales, and then I can select a metric field, quantity sold, for instance, metric function, sum, average, count, distinct. So here I will select sum. We then also have a period field where we can then select the sales date, for instance, and then specify the period. So here we have full date, year, month, day, and so forth. Here I'll select year, and we then finally have the option to display values of both periods, the actual period, the last period, or none. So I will leave as both. Next to this, we have formatting options where we can change the formatting of the indicators which are provided. So here we also have regional settings we can complete with zeros, as well as provide the decimal precision. We also have filter options, layout options, as well as specific properties for this element. So here, for instance, we can define whether it allows us to go compact mode, allows us to maximize the element, removable or collapsible. So I have removed all of those because I want it to stay where it is and not provide any further options for this specific element. So I'm going to go ahead and reduce the size of it, move it over here to the corner, and then we're going to go ahead and make a few more. So I have now 3 KPI widgets added, and we're just going to make some slight layout adjustments, and we can go ahead and run our dashboard application and see what it now looks like. So now within our dashboard application, we first of all have 3 widgets here. They're white. We will want to adjust these slightly so they look a bit prettier. And we also have our grid, which we have created previously. So let's go ahead and adjust this further. So within the dashboard application, we can of course adjust these. And then within the KPIs, we want to change the layout of these and provide some colors for these KPI indicators. So here I'll specify the index background. I'll save this. And I will apply that to all of the KPIs we have here. So as we see now, we've added now colors to our KPIs, but we still want to maybe clean this up a little more and adjust the fonts. So let's go ahead and do that also. Again, within the layout, we can specify the font title and we can provide here a font that we want to use, as well as the size of this, the color of the font that we want to use. So let's go white and then also specify bold. So let's do that for all the KPIs that we have here. Okay, so we've defined the layout for each of the KPIs. We've already applied that to all 3 of them. Now, when we run our dashboard again, we can then go ahead and view that the fonts and so forth have all changed. And of course, in some cases, we would want to adjust these further so that they are cleaner and nicer depending on the information that we have displayed and so forth. Now, a dashboard application can be used for many elements. Now, one of the things we had actually showed is the options to remove options from the KPIs, which we have no options here. But we can see here on this one, on the grid, which we have added, we have the option to move it around. We can minimize it. We can make it full screen. And we can also close it. Each of these options are available for all elements that we add to our dashboard application. And of course, we can continue adding more here, adding forms and so forth if we so choose. Okay, so one thing I am noticing here is that the theme we had selected for our application doesn't really go very well with our dashboard application. And for the purpose of this demo, we of course want things to look half nice. So let's go ahead and close our dashboard now that we've finished with this. And we are going to go ahead and express edit all of the applications we have created. And we're going to select all of them, and we're going to go ahead and change the theme for them all. So let's go ahead and select the theme, select next, and this time we only have SC9 available, so we need to add more themes to our template. So to do that, we go to project and then properties, and then within the properties we select our theme, and we can adjust or include further themes within our application. So I'll just go ahead and add a few more. And this time I'm going to set the sweet blue as default, set that as default, select save. So now all new applications will be using this new theme. So then we also want to go ahead back to tools and express edit. Again, all applications, and select the theme, go next. And we are now going to change the theme for all applications to the SC9 sweet blue, apply. And then once complete, we can go ahead and generate our applications again, and we will have a completely different theme applied to our applications. And then we select finish. Okay, so we need to go ahead and generate all of our applications. Select generate source. We select all applications, generate. Once our generation has completed, we can go ahead and run one of our forms. So let's run the form customers, which we had previously created. And we will now see we have a completely different layout here, which is possibly much nicer within our dashboard. So let's run our dashboard again, run dashboard. And now within the dashboard, we can see that we have our new template and theme applied to our grid application within our dashboard. Okay, so then the final application we want to create is actually the menu application so that we can tie all of our programs together. So let's go ahead and close this and select the new application. With the new application open, we then select the menu, and again we have no options for the menu as it is a basic application. We go next and create. Now within the menu, we can quickly add individual applications by selecting the plus to insert an individual item, or we can import all of the applications which we have created or selected applications. So I'll just go ahead and select all, select remove the dashboard, and select the import button. Now all applications that we have created have been automatically imported into our menu, and we see a preview down the bottom here, And the first thing we will do is we'll go ahead and select maybe a different layout for this. So we select the Gleam Dark Blue, which is quite nice. And then we want to also change our menu items. So here, first of all, we have within the organization menu here, we have the option to adjust the items we have here. So we can move them up and down. Of course, we need to deselect all of them. So let's uncheck all. Select the ones we want to adjust around. So here, the forms, for instance, we may want to move them in one so that they are accessible via a drop-down menu. So customers, for instance, we would want this with the customers grid. So let's move this down, grid customers, form sales with the forms of sales. And then our final grid here was the form orders, which we want to place then with the grid orders. So now we have 3 drop-down menus with our grid as well as then the form. Of course, then we want to go ahead and change the titles for our applications. And to the right here, we can change the label that we have displayed here. So here, for instance, I will specify sales chart. The link is the application title. So here we can either change the link to any application we like, or we can select here the link icon, which will then open the automatic selection. And we can also select an application to be placed in here. We already have the chart sales, so in reality, we would not need to select anything here. I could either import or cancel. We can apply hints, which will then be displayed on hover. We can also provide icons to our menu items here, as well as active tab icon, inactive tab icons. We will have a look at this again in a moment, as within the settings we can indicate whether on selection a tab is opened or it is opened within the application itself. So continuing on to the right here, we've already seen that we have the theme and we have the menu orientation. Some menu themes will work on horizontal and vertical, some are only horizontal. So I quickly made some adjustments, changed the names, and basically now if we run our menu application, we'll now have a nice clean menu with no applications available, but of course we can go ahead and select them. And as we see here, the form we have selected to open is now open within a tab. Okay, so back to the menu, we have some other options available also. So we have first of all the menu items, which is what we were viewing just now. So you may be fooled a little when you open the menu application for the first time that the menu items is the first viewed option and not settings. So accessing settings, we then have further options which we can then define the horizontal, vertical layout of our menu items. We can also provide a width, iframe width, if we have a toolbar, if the theme is applied, the scroll bar, if language selection is available, if we provide options to change the theme, and many more options. So one of the things we want to do with our menu application is first of all specify a application to open when we open the menu. So here we want to open the dashboard application. So I select the link and then select dashboard and import. We can also manually enter this if we so choose. So above this we have the option to show navigation breadcrumbs. I will enable this, and then we have icon options if we so choose. I'm going to skip those for now, save our menu and access then next our toolbar option. So within the toolbar option, we can add some quick buttons here, for instance. So here I'll add one button, and we have here a slight preview, and I will select button as the type. We can also select image or link. So I leave it as button. We provide a label. So here I will say add new customer, for instance, and then we can link this to our form application for form customers. Again, we import it. Here we also have the option to have a hint. We can display only the text or only an image if we have an image applied, and we can then also define where this image is located. So if I go ahead and run this again, we will now have our menu application opening with a dashboard for starters, and we will also have a little button here which has no indicators at all. So of course we want to access this again. We have here button is displayed. We have here only text, so let's select only text, and now we have our text displayed for our button. So we do now have our menu complete and all of the applications we've created available within this. We could go ahead and add some further quick access buttons, maybe even change the grid which we have displayed here, and even clean up the APIs, or the KPIs which we have indicated here on the right hand side. But for now, I think we're actually ready to go ahead and access or include our security system into our project. And then at any time in the future, we can modify anything we so please. Thank you very much for watching part 4 of this demonstration here with Scriptcase. We hope to see you again soon within the next part of this demonstration.